Graduation day smelled like sweat, hairspray, and stolen champagne. Emma and Melody stood at the edge of the university field in their gowns, caps tilted at angles that had taken 45 minutes and 3 group chats to perfect, watching families swarm the grass like ants who'd just found sugar. "We did it," Melody breathed, clutching her certificate like it might evaporate. 4 years. 4 years of instant noodles and crying in the library bathroom, and we actually did it. "Speak for yourself," Emma said, adjusting her friend's cap for the 100th time. "I only cried in the library bathroom twice. You cried there so often they should name a stall after you." "They already did. It says Melody's office in Sharpie." They laughed the way only two people who'd survived something together could laugh. Loud, unbothered, drawing looks from proud parents nearby. Emma and Melody had met in their first week of university, thrown together as roommates by a housing algorithm that for once had gotten something right. Emma was sharp-tongued and steady, the friend who always had painkillers, cab fare, and a brutally honest opinion on your outfit. Melody was soft where Emma was sharp, warm, a little dreamy, the kind of beautiful that made strangers do double takes on the street. With long, curly hair she wore loose and heavy with gold, cuffs climbing her ear, a fine chain resting against her collarbone, bangles that announced her before she entered a room. She believed in love the way other people believed in gravity, simply, completely, without needing proof. 2 weeks after graduation, the universe handed them both a gift. "I got it!" Emma had screamed into the phone, pacing her childhood bedroom. "Emma, I got the internship! The bank! The actual bank!" "Shut up!" Melody's scream had come right back, equally unhinged. "I got mine too! The agency called this morning!" "We're going to be broke interns together, just in different buildings," Emma had said, laughing so hard she'd had to sit down. "This is the best, worst news I've ever gotten." Different companies, same city, same relentless friendship. Nothing had changed, except now they had ID badges. The boyfriend arrived 6 weeks later, the way good news usually does, unannounced, in the middle of an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday. "Okay, don't be weird about this," Melody said, sliding into the booth across from Emma, at their usual spot, the diner with the burnt coffee they both pretended to love out of loyalty. Emma set down her menu slowly. That sentence has never once preceded good news. "I have a boyfriend." Emma blinked. "Since when?" "Since 3 weeks ago, but I wanted to make sure it was real before I told you." Melody was already glowing, that particular glow of a woman who has decided, against all evidence and experience, to hope. "His name is Emeka. He's a client at the agency. Well, his company is a client, and he's just Emma. He's so generous. He sent a car for me last week because it was raining, a whole car. And he's handsome in that way where you keep looking at him even after you've already looked." "Generous and handsome," Emma said, sipping her coffee. "Suspicious combination. What's the catch?" "There's no catch. Some of us just get lucky." Melody grinned, wide and unguided. "I'm happy, Em. Genuinely. You know I don't say that lightly." And Emma, who loved her best friend more than she loved most things, felt something warm settle in her chest, the specific joy of watching someone you love get treated the way they deserve. "Then I'm happy too," Emma said, and meant it completely. "Tell generous, handsome Emeka that if he breaks your heart, I know people who know people. You don't know anybody. I know you. That's a whole crime unit on its own." They toasted with burnt coffee, laughing, and Emma thought, briefly, fondly, that Melody had finally found her person. 6 months slid by the way good months do, quickly and without incident. Emma climbed the ranks at the bank, Melody thrived at the agency, and every Sunday they still met at the diner, comparing bruises from corporate life like war veterans. It was on an ordinary Thursday evening at Emma's new apartment that the ground quietly shifted. "He's coming to get me," Melody said, checking her phone as she gathered her things. I told him to just meet me here, save me the Uber. Fine by me, Emma said, only half listening as she cleared the wine glasses from their impromptu catch-up session. Tell him I said thank you for not making you take public transport at night like a peasant. The buzzer rang 12 minutes later. Emma padded to the door in her socks, already talking through it. You've raised a good one, Melody. He's actually punctual. She opened the door mid-sentence, and the sentence died somewhere in her throat. Because standing there, in a fitted navy jacket, one hand still raised like he'd been about to knock again, was a face Emma had spent 2 years trying very hard to forget. Older now, sharper jaw, better tailored, but unmistakably, gut-punchingly him. For 1 full second, the world tilted sideways. It can't be. Emeka. The name came out of her mouth like a question she already knew the answer to. Something flickered across his face too, surprise, quickly swallowed, replaced by his slow, unbothered smile that made Emma's stomach drop through the floor. But Emma recovered fast. She'd always been quick on her feet. It was, after all, how she'd survived 4 years of surprise pop quizzes and worse surprises before that. Her face smoothed into pleasant neutrality before Melody even reached the door.
Baby! Melody appeared behind her, gold bangles chiming as she threw her arms around him, curls bouncing against his shoulder. You found it okay? Wasn't hard, he said. But his eyes weren't on Melody. They were still on Emma, steady, unblinking. The way a man looks at something he thought he'd never see again and is quietly, privately thrilled about. I missed you, he said. The words landed in the doorway like a dropped glass, and for one horrible silent beat, Emma genuinely didn't know who he was talking to. Melody, tucked against his chest and completely unaware that the air around her had just changed temperature, smiled up at him without a shadow of doubt in her eyes. I missed you too, she said sweetly. Emma stood in her own doorway, arms crossed, heart going like a drum, and smiled the kind of smile you only learn to make after years of practice, the one that says everything is fine, while everything, very much, is not. Nice to finally meet you, Emma lied, and shook the hand of the man whose name she'd once known a very different way. The text came at 11:47 the next morning, while Emma was elbow deep in a spreadsheet that hated her. Glad we finally met properly last night. Funny how small the world is. We should get coffee sometime, catch up properly. Emma read it twice, then a third time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less insane. She typed back before she could think too hard about it. We are not getting coffee. You're dating my best friend. I don't know what kind of memory loss you're experiencing, but I remember exactly who you are. It's just coffee, Emma. Old friends catching up. Nothing wrong with that. We were not old friends. Delete my number.
She put the phone face down on her desk with more force than necessary and went back to her spreadsheet, which suddenly felt like the more trustworthy relationship in her life. That evening, Melody called, breathless and delighted, mid-shopping trip. I found the perfect earrings, gold obviously, but they've got this little drop detail. She paused. Wait, why do you sound like you're chewing glass? I'm not, Emma said, forcing brightness into her voice. Long day, the Adeyemi account is trying to kill me. Well, don't let it. I need you alive for my birthday dinner. A pause, softer. Also, I know it was a bit awkward last night with the whole you not knowing who Emeka was and him just showing up. I should have given you a heads up. Emma's stomach twisted. If only she knew how little a heads up would have helped. It was fine, Emma said. He seems nice. He is nice, Melody said, and Emma could hear the smile in it, could picture the way Melody's curls would be swinging as she turned to admire herself in a shop mirror, gold bangles catching the light. I think this might actually be it, Em. I think he's the one. Emma closed her eyes.
I'm happy for you, she said. And the terrible thing was that some small, buried part of her still meant it, even as another part of her sat with a secret so heavy it had its own gravitational pull. She did not tell Melody she knew him. She told herself it was to protect her. She told herself a lot of things that week. Emeka did not, in fact, delete her number. He texted twice more that week. Casual, breezy, needling. On day 4 he called. She let it ring out. He called again 9 minutes later, like a man with nowhere better to be, which infuriated Emma more than anything he'd actually said. "You're relentless," she snapped, finally answering, phone pressed so hard to her ear it left a mark. "I prefer persistent," he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice, the same maddening smile from the doorway. "One coffee, Emma. If you still hate me after, I'll leave you alone forever. I promise."
You don't know how to keep a promise. I remember that part of you very clearly. Then, prove me wrong, or prove yourself right. Either way, you win. Emma stared at her ceiling for a long moment, phone against her chest, the traitorous part of her brain already calculating what she'd wear. "This is insane," she told herself. "This is the single most insane thing you will ever consider doing." "Fine," she said, "one coffee, and then you disappear." She did not disappear him. That was the problem with match-lit things. They rarely stopped at the match.
Coffee became wine. 3 weeks later, at Emma's apartment, on a night she would later try very hard to pretend hadn't happened the way it happened. It started innocently enough, or as innocently as anything involving a man who was, technically, someone else's could start. He'd shown up with a bottle of red he claimed was just something decent, which turned out to be embarrassingly expensive, and Emma had let him in because refusing felt like more effort than it was worth, and also, if she was honest, which she was trying very hard not to be, because some reckless corner of her wanted him there. "You've redecorated," he said, looking around her living room, "since university." "It's been 2 years, Emeka. I'd hope so." "You still keep your books alphabetized, though," he nodded at her shelf. "Some things don't change." "Some things shouldn't," she said it pointedly, refilling her glass, and he had the decency to look briefly chastened.
They talked. That was the dangerous part. Not the wine, not the low lighting, but the talking, easy and familiar, in a way that felt like slipping into an old coat. He remembered things, stupid things, the name of her childhood dog, her irrational hatred of coriander, the way she used to hum when she was concentrating, which she apparently still did, because he pointed it out with an infuriating little smile, and she nearly threw a coaster at him. By the second glass, the conversation had drifted somewhere it shouldn't have. "I think about it sometimes," he said, quieter now, elbow on the back of the couch, eyes steady on her in that unblinking way he had. "Us, what happened?" "What happened," Emma said carefully, "is that you left. That's what happened. I don't need a highlight reel. I was young, stupid. I know that now." He shifted closer, close enough that she could smell the wine on his breath, close enough that the air in the room seemed to thin out. "Meeting you again, at Melody's, of all people, it felt like the universe was trying to tell me something." "The universe doesn't work like that." Emma's voice came out steadier than she felt. "And even if it did, you're dating my best friend. I know." He didn't move away. If anything, he leaned in a fraction more. "I know exactly what this looks like, Emma. I know it's insane. But I haven't stopped thinking about you since that doorway. I'm going to end it with Melody." The words dropped into the room like a stone into still water. Emma should have stood up. She should have opened the door and put him bodily through it. Instead, she sat very still, wine glass forgotten in her hand, some small treacherous part of her lighting up and being chosen, even knowing, what kind of man does the choosing this way? "You can't say that," she whispered. "I mean it. I really love you, Emma. I think I always have." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and Emma, God help her, didn't pull away. She would spend a long time afterwards trying to locate the exact second she stopped being the friend who refused coffee and became someone else entirely. She never quite found it. Betrayal, it turned out,
rarely announced itself with a bang. It crept in quietly, dressed as good wine and old memories, and by the time you noticed, it had already taken off its shoes and gotten comfortable. Melody noticed the shift before Emma did anything to confirm it. "He's been weird," she said one Sunday, stirring her tea with more aggression than tea generally required. They were back at the diner, though Emma had started finding excuses to reschedule these Sundays, always running 5, 10, 20 minutes late. Weird how? Distant, distracted, cancels plans, texts back an hour late when he used to reply in seconds. I timed it once, don't judge me." Melody pushed a curl behind her ear, gold cuff glinting, brow furrowed in a way that didn't suit her usual sunshine. "Last week, I asked if everything was okay, and he looked at me like I'd asked him to solve a math equation."
Emma stared very hard at her coffee. "Relationships go through phases," she said, which was, she thought, possibly the most cowardly sentence she had ever constructed. "Maybe." Melody didn't sound convinced. I thought this was it, you know? I thought I'd finally found someone who wouldn't do the slow fade. Guess I jinxed it by telling everyone." "You didn't jinx anything," Emma said, and hated herself, actively, in real time, for every syllable. "You're the only one I can talk to about this," Melody added, reaching over to squeeze Emma's hand, oblivious, trusting, curls falling forward as she leaned in. "I don't know what I'd do without you, honestly." Emma smiled and said something comforting and useless, and under the table her stomach folded in on itself, like wet paper.
She found out about the pregnancy on a Tuesday, which felt insultingly ordinary for a day that split her life into a before and after. She sat on her bathroom floor for 11 minutes before she called him. And when he picked up, breezy, mid-laugh at something in the background, she didn't bother with a preamble. "I'm pregnant." The laughter cut off like a wire snipped clean. There was a long silence on the line, long enough that Emma checked to see if the call had dropped. "Okay," he said finally, carefully, the way a man speaks when he's choosing every word for insurance purposes. "Okay, we'll figure it out."
"I am not asking you to figure anything out," Emma said, and something in her had gone very cold, very clear, in the 11 minutes on that bathroom floor. "I'm telling you because you should know. But I want you to understand something, Emeka. At this point, I don't care about you. I don't care about Melody. I don't care about the mess we've made. I care about myself and what happens to me now. That's it. That's the whole list." Another silence. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, flattened, retreated, already halfway out the door. "I don't want a child, Emma." He said it simply, like he was declining a second helping at dinner. I'm not in a place for that. I think you should really think about your options." "My options?" Emma repeated. "I'll help however I can. Financially, whatever you need. But I'm not ready to be a father. Not now. Maybe not ever." "Right," Emma said. "Of course."
"Emma!" She hung up before he could finish whatever sentence he'd been building, because she already knew, with total certainty, exactly what kind of sentence it was going to be. The kind with an exit built into it. He texted twice over the following week. Distant, clinical, the warmth she'd let herself get drunk on entirely evaporated. Then the texts slowed. Then they stopped. And 2 weeks after that, Melody called, giddy, breathless, the melody-shaped sunshine fully restored. He's back to himself. He took me out last night, brought flowers, the whole thing. I don't know what got into him these past few weeks, but I think we're okay. I think we're actually okay." Emma sat with her hand pressed flat against her own stomach, listening to her best friend's happiness pour warm and unknowing down the phone line, and said the only thing she had left to give.
"I'm so glad, Mel," she said. "You deserve that." It wasn't a lie exactly. It just wasn't the whole truth. Emma was becoming fluent in that particular dialect, the language of things technically said and carefully not. The proposal happened on a rooftop, because of course it did. Melody called Emma at 9:14 on a Friday night, and the sound that came down the line wasn't words at first, just a high, delighted shriek that made Emma nearly drop a mug of tea she'd been nursing like medicine. "Emma!" Another shriek. "Emma, he proposed!" Emma set the mug down very carefully, the way you set things down when your hands have started doing things without your permission. "He what?" "He proposed! On the rooftop of that restaurant, the one with the string lights. He got down on one knee in front of everyone, Em. There were actual strangers crying. A whole table of strangers. I have never in my life..." Melody's words were tumbling over each other, breathless, giddy, gold bangles audibly clinking with every gesture she was surely making on the other end. "Look, I'm sending you a picture. Look at it. Look at it."
The photo came through a second later. A ring, obscenely large, sitting on Melody's finger, which was itself resting against her collarbone, her curls tumbling loose around her face, her eyes closed in the kind of joy that photographs badly, because no camera can actually hold that much light. Emma stared at the photo for a long moment. Then she did the thing she had gotten terrifyingly good at these past months. She smiled, alone, in her apartment, at a phone screen, for an audience of no one, and let the smile shape her voice into something that sounded convincingly like happiness. "Mel," she said, "it's beautiful. You're beautiful. Congratulations. I want you to be my maid of honor, obviously. Who else would it even be?" Melody laughed, wet and joyful. "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I get to marry him." "Neither can I," Emma said. And if there was an edge underneath those four words, Melody, drunk on rooftop lights and diamonds, didn't hear it. He came back to Emma exactly 9 days later. She should have blocked his number the day he told her, over the phone, in that flat clinical voice, that he wasn't ready to be a father. She told herself daily that she would. She never did. Some small, humiliated part of her kept the door open a crack, the way you keep checking a wound to see if it's actually healing or just pretending to. He showed up at her building unannounced, the way he seemed to enjoy doing, always arriving at the exact moment she was least prepared for him. Hair a little damp from the rain, expression soft in a way that made her want to scream, and also, God help her, made her open the door. "I've been thinking," he said, before she'd even fully processed his presence in her hallway, "about everything, about you, about the baby." "Don't," Emma said. "Whatever this is, don't. I love you, Emma." He said it like a man laying down a winning hand, certain of the effect. "I was scared. I panicked. But I've had time to think, and I want this. I want you to keep the baby. I want to be there, really there this time." It should not have worked. Emma knew, even as it was happening, that it should not have worked. That a man who vanishes at the first sign of consequence and reappears the second the coast looks clear is not a man discovering depth. He is a man testing whether the door is still unlocked. She knew this the way she knew her own name. She let him back in anyway. Because grief does strange arithmetic, and loneliness makes for a very persuasive editor. And some nights, the only thing worse than being lied to is being alone with the truth. "Okay," she said, hand resting against the small curve that was just beginning to show beneath her shirt. "Okay, I'll keep her." "Her?" "I don't know yet. I just have a feeling." He smiled and pulled her in. And for the first time in weeks, Emma let herself believe, just a little, just enough to be dangerous, that this might actually resolve into something that didn't end in wreckage. She did not, of course, tell Melody any of this. She told herself, once again, that it was to protect her. The engagement was 3 weeks old. The wedding wasn't even booked yet. There would be time, Emma reasoned, to figure out how to unravel this without anyone getting killed, arrested, or disowned by their own mother. There would be time.
There was, in fact, considerably less time than Emma had budgeted for.
Melody planned the baby shower herself, which Emma found out about via a group chat titled Baby Emma's Shower Planning. Do not leak to Emma. That Melody had, with spectacular irony, accidentally added Emma too. Emma stared at her phone screen for a full minute, laughing. Actual unwilled laughter, the kind that claws its way out of you, even mid-catastrophe, before quietly leaving the chat and never mentioning it. I want to do something special for you, Melody told her over lunch 2 days later, entirely unaware of her own security breach. You've been through so much lately. The guy who ghosted you, going it alone, you deserve a proper celebration. I already picked a theme, soft gold and cream, obviously. She gestured at her own gold-laden wrists as if this was self-evident law. I've booked the venue, ordered the cake. I even found a guy who does the little name reveal balloon things. Mel, you don't have to. I want to. Melody reached across the table and squeezed her hand, curls falling forward, eyes soft. You've always shown up for me, Em, every single time. Let me show up for you, for once.
Emma smiled, and underneath the table, her stomach dropped through the floor of the restaurant, through the foundations of the building, down into some deep and airless place, because the woman in front of her, planning a party, thumb already scrolling through balloon arch photos, gold bangles chiming softly with every movement, did not know she was, in effect, planning a celebration for her own fiancé's child. You have to tell her, Emma thought, watching Melody laugh at a balloon photo shaped badly like a stalk. You have to tell her before this goes any further. She did not tell her. Melody paid the bill, hugged her twice, and floated out of the restaurant, already texting the balloon guy about color proofs. And Emma sat alone at the table for another 10 minutes, feeling like the worst person who had ever lived, which, she was beginning to suspect, she very well might be.
The morning of the baby shower, Emma stood in front of her mirror, trying to arrange her face into an expression that wouldn't get immediately clocked as guilt. The dress was soft gold and cream, per the theme, and it fit strangely now over the small swell of her stomach. A swell that would, in a few short hours, be applauded and celebrated by a room full of Melody's friends and family, all of them cheerfully ignorant of the one fact that made the whole event a farce. Hurry up, we're going to be late to your own party, Melody called from the living room, already dressed, already glowing, gold bangles chiming as she moved around, gathering her purse, her keys, the little note card she'd printed for the balloon reveal game. I swear, the guest of honor is always the last one ready. It's a law of nature. Coming, Emma called back, and took one last steadying breath at the mirror, the kind of breath you take before walking into a room you know is on fire. She left her phone charging on the kitchen counter and went to grab her shoes. It buzzed twice while she was gone. Melody, waiting by the door, glanced over out of pure idle habit, the way you glance at any phone that lights up nearby, and felt something in her chest go very still.
Emeka. Same profile photo, same beach, same sunglasses pushed into his hair, the one she'd picked herself because she thought it was his best angle. His boyfriend. Texting Emma on a Saturday morning, while they were all supposed to be getting ready for the same event. He's probably just confirming the time, Melody told herself, and almost believed it, and might have kept believing it entirely if the notification banner beneath his name hadn't stayed lit just long enough for her to read it before the screen went dark again. Can't stop thinking about last night. Miss you already. See you in an hour. Love. Melody read it once. The words didn't fully land. The way it burned doesn't hurt in the first half second before the nerves catch up. She read it again. Love.
Your phone's going off, she called out, and was surprised by how normal her own voice sounded, how easily it came out light and unbothered, when everything underneath it had just quietly caved in like wet ground.
Just ignore it. It's probably my mom reminding me to eat something, Emma called from the bedroom, entirely unaware that she had just handed her best friend a shovel and pointed her toward a grave she'd spent months digging in secret. Melody looked at the phone, looked at the hallway, where she could hear Emma still moving around, humming something under her breath, blissfully unaware, looked back at the phone. She picked it up. She told herself she was just going to check the time on the notification, nothing more. A perfectly reasonable, perfectly innocent glance. But her thumb was already moving, and Emma's passcode had never been a secret between them, not once in 6 years of friendship. And the phone unlocked with the same easy familiarity it always had. And that, more than anything, was what broke Melody's heart first. That the betrayal had been sitting this close, this reachable, this known to her the entire time.
The message thread opened. Melody's world did not collapse all at once. It collapsed the way a building collapses in a controlled demolition, floor by floor, in order, each one taking the one below it with it. Floor 1. 11 months of messages. Not weeks. Not since the pregnancy. 11 months. Which put the start of it somewhere in the fog of, he's been distant lately. And, I think he's just going through something. Conversations Melody herself had had with Emma. At this very diner. At this very table. While Emma nodded sympathetically and said nothing. Floor 2. The night of the doorway. I missed you, he'd said. Eyes on Emma. And Melody had thought, God, she'd actually thought it was sweet. Thought he was talking about missing being social. Missing his friends. Some vague, warm nothing. She scrolled up further and found the message he'd sent Emma. 4 hours after that exact night. That was torture. Seeing you and not being able to touch you.
Floor 3. The pregnancy. The date lined up, brutally, precisely. With the week he told Melody, he needed space to think. She'd cried on Emma's shoulder that week. Emma had made her tea. Emma had said, he'll come around, Mel. Men are idiots. Give him time. And had known, the entire time, exactly why he was gone, and exactly where he'd gone to. Floor 4. The proposal. A message from Emeka to Emma, sent the same evening as the rooftop. The string lights, the crying strangers. Had to do it in front of people, or she'd have talked me out of the timeline. This doesn't change anything between us. I still want you. I want us. I just need to buy more time. Melody made a small sound in the back of her throat. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. The sound of a person's whole understanding of reality, being quietly and efficiently dismantled in 90 seconds flat. Floor 5. The basement. The one that finally hit water. A message from 3 weeks ago, Emeka to Emma, casual as a grocery list. Can't wait for the shower to be over, honestly. Whole thing feels like a play we're all pretending to be in. Once the baby's born, we can figure out the real plan. I love you. Only you. Real plan. Melody looked up from the phone, slowly, the way you look up from the wreckage of a car crash, checking to see if the world outside the windshield still looks the way it did 60 seconds ago. Down the hall, Emma appeared in the doorway, one earring in, the other still in her hand, mid-sentence about whether the gold or the cream shoes looked better with the dress, and stopped completely when she saw Melody's face and the phone in Melody's hand, and understood, in the single worst instant of both their lives, exactly what had just happened. Neither of them said anything for a long moment. Somewhere outside, a car horn sounded. The driver Melody had booked to take them to the venue, cheerfully unaware that the two women he was waiting for were about to attend a party neither of them would ever be able to think about again without wanting to be sick. Mel, Emma started, and her voice cracked on the single syllable. Cracked the way a dam cracks, not with a bang, but with a hairline fracture that tells you quietly and with total certainty that everything behind it is coming. Melody set the phone down on the hallway table, very carefully, very deliberately, as if the whole apartment might shatter if she moved too fast. "It's his baby," she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice had gone somewhere strange and flat, somewhere past crying, into the calm, cold country that exists just beyond it. The whole time, it's his.
Emma opened her mouth. Nothing came out that could possibly have been enough. "Say something," Melody said, louder now, the flatness cracking. "Say anything, Emma. You let me plan a baby shower. You let me pick out balloons. You let me call you my best friend for 11 months while you are..." She stopped, pressed the heel of her hand hard against one eye, gold bangles sliding down her wrist with a small, absurd chime, the most ordinary sound in the world, landing in the middle of the worst moment of her life. "I trusted you with my phone code. I trusted you with everything." "I was going to tell you," Emma said, and even she seemed to hear how thin it sounded once it was actually spoken aloud. "When?" Melody's laugh came out jagged, nothing like her real laugh, nothing like the laugh Emma had known since their first week of university. "After the wedding? After I named her? Were you going to let me stand up there in a white dress in front of everyone we know? Or was there a deadline on the lie I just don't know about?"
Downstairs, the car horn sounded again, twice, insistent, absurdly ordinary. The driver had no idea he was currently idling outside the wreckage of a 6-year friendship, waiting patiently to chauffeur 2 women to a party celebrating a lie neither of them could now bring themselves to attend. Melody looked at her best friend, swollen-eyed, half-dressed, one earring in, standing in a doorway in a gold dress meant for a celebration that had just turned to ash in both their hands, and felt something in her chest finally, completely give way. "Take off the earring," she said quietly. "There's no shower today." Well, do tell me if you like this story, and let me know if you want a part 2, and tell me who you think is at fault for this one.